Okay, so we're live and we're here to talk about your new favorite coloring book and why it's going to be your new favorite coloring book. I'm Regina Curtis of Admitri, and I'm here with Dawn Phoenix, and we're the co-creators of this book. So good morning or good evening or wherever you are in the world, whatever time of day it is. Blessings to you. So Dawn, I'm so excited. Today's launch day. How are you this morning?
Buzzing. I love this. Fantastic.
Oh no, your internet's breaking up again. I heard buzzing and then you froze in this really excited pose. I'm gonna let you drop out for a second and come back in and see if that works. For some reason it worked before, but you're all pixelated now.
It was weird. I had like both of our screens.
Oh, are you there? Okay, you're back.
Yeah. Well, I'm here on my end. On your end?
I know you're here. Do you want to try dropping out again, and I'll bring you back in, just to see if that helps?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. While she's doing that, I'm gonna just introduce what we are talking about. So we're talking about this coloring book, and it's funny. This is our proof copy. We don't even have our own copies yet because we were so excited to do the launch that we went ahead and just opened it up. And knowing that time is of the essence, especially right now, and these are great gifts that you may want to have them. Purchase them for gifts, and it will take a minute to get them. So we went ahead and just launched it, put it live. Here's one that I started coloring in. We'll talk about it again in a moment here, but we wanted to get them in your hands as quickly as we could. So we just even have our own proofs of them. So welcome back, Dawn. You look clearer.
Thank you.
You sound clearer. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah,
excellent. So I was just mentioning, I was laughing about how we have proof copies of the book. Actually, Dawn doesn't even have any copies of the book yet. I have just the proof copies because we were so excited to get them out and share them with the world and allow for as much time as possible if you wanted to get them for gifts. So that is where we are. So we're talking about why this is your new favorite coloring book, and it's much more than just a coloring book, right? It is it's infused with these messages, these channeled messages, and the artwork themselves actually are composed of the messages that were channeled by Dawn from the Star Horses of Corolla. So Dawn, do you want to talk about the Star Horses and maybe introduce a little bit about how you met them and your relationship with them, how you receive these messages?
Yes.
Okay.
So back in 2019, I lived in Corolla, North Carolina, which is along the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And it's a series of barrier islands that just kind of jut out into the ocean from the mainland of North Carolina. And I was working at a tour company called Wild Horse Adventure Tours in the office. I did not get the glory of being a tour guide, but I worked in the office taking reservations and things like that. And it was really interesting because people kept asking, where did the horses come from? And that was my first year there. So I didn't, this was new to me. And so what we were told is just to tell people we think they came from, nobody really knows, but we think they came from Spanish galleons that sunk, that sank off the coast. And then the horses were on there. They were traveling from Spain. And so they swam here to the beach. And then I was like, for a couple, and then why don't I ask them where they came from? I'm a certified animal communicator. I'm a channel. I can just ask them. So I did. And I connected with Jocko, who is the speaking oversoul for the Star Horses. And he told me, here's where we come from. it's not just, you know, this beach, but this is where we are, but we came from the stars. And I was like, wow. And so whenever I do a communication, I'm always writing everything down as I receive it. And so I had like 5 pages of notes, and he and I talked for like an hour and a half. So that's how I met them. And I published a book, a children's book called The Star Horses of Kerala, and that's their origination story. So that's how I met them and got this inspiration to get their messages out to even more people with you. And we work so well together that
Yes.
I had to say, hey, I do the words, but you do something fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
So, yeah, with the artwork and
Awesome.
all the things that touch people in the different ways.
Thank you. Well, and I can
Yeah,
talk a little bit about how the artworks came to be as well. So,
thank
Dawn
you.
and I met, as many people I met in 2020 online in different groups and workshops and classes and all the things. Being a lifelong learner and someone who has always been in the space of education and creativity, my go-to when the world shut down and things went into lockdown was to take it online and to meet people online and to take classes and continue learning. Um, and so I actually, that's how I met Dawn. We met in a group where we were both, Dawn's having some issues again with her. I'm going to remove her for a second and see if she becomes unfrozen. Anyway, we connected, and so one of the first things that she asked me about, I was working on a series of oracle deck, well, not a series of images for an oracle deck, and they were channeled. And so it's something that I still am working on, and hopefully will be my next publication. However, they're they've made their way into the world in lots of ways that I didn't necessarily imagine would be the case. That's another story for another time. But Dawn asked me when we met in this group, hey, I have this Oracle deck that I've been wanting to make. Can I ask you some questions about it? And so that's how we originally connected. And as we talked, it just became really apparent very quickly. I started getting this image of a coloring book and how these messages wanted to be more interactive, more playful. There was this really playful energy. And I think that that's been really present with any conversation that we've had whenever the Star Horses show up. There's this really playful, yet really strong and powerful energy. And so, as you know, we were kind of just exploring and playing with this idea, I got this really clear message of make a coloring book. Now, I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like, or how it would come together, but I shared this idea with Dawn, and she was like, yes, I love it, let's do it. So I sat with it in meditation, and I asked the horses, how do you want me to present these images? And I'm an art channel, so I receive intuitive messages and intuitive artwork all the time. So that was, you know, at first what I was thinking the way that it was going to come through. And the guidance that I got was to actually use the words as the framework for the images. And so I started to get these images of like a kaleidoscope of the words kind of like circling around and making different shapes in them. And that's how it started to come through. So in each image, if you were to divide it in four, like a piece of pie, you would see that it's actually the same. There's like a quarter of like a pie piece, where the words were created were actually written the same message that came through. So there's a contemplation that goes with each image. So I'll show you in here. So if you see the whole thing, this camera, I can never get it right. But so the contemplation, the message, the theme is over here, the contemplation is here, and then the image is here. So this one is divine self-remembrance. And the contemplation that comes through or that came through to Dawn is, what in your life is calling you to remember your true divine nature? And so this is what Dawn provided to me, this theme, divine self remembrance. and then the contemplation. And then I created the artwork. So it's actually infused with the energy of this contemplation and of this theme. So when you're working on it, even though you're not necessarily like repeating the affirmation, um, it's still infused in there. It's planting that seed of contemplation, and then you get to just play, explore, color, bring it to life, be at peace. Um, practice mindfulness, whatever terminology you like to use for that, but to be present with it and to be in joy. And that feels really important for this whole book, is to just really enjoy it, to be excited about it. And I feel like that is reflected even in, like, right, I can't stop smiling. Like, just bringing this to life is so exciting. And it's not um it's not so much like, oh, I'm a published artist, or, I guess, I don't know, author, illustrator, all of the above. um but it's more about like getting to see this thing, that this creative baby, come to life. Dawn, what are you thinking? I see your wheels turning, your wheels turning. I can't use words today.
My wheels are whirling. Okay, hopefully the internet like cooperates because I'm not plugged in to my modem, which I was like, oh, it's going
Okay.
to do that. So that's probably why I'm all funky. But
Okay.
hopefully we can get through this without me disappearing. Um,
Excellent.
yeah, it's just joy. And I just made a connection while you were talking about the mandalas having the four pieces, of the
Mm,
pie. And it's like, so the Star Horses started coming in with the message that they had brought out for my little comment on Facebook. And what they had originally said was, um, your your loving herd, and they're referring to you and I. They said your loving herd is encircling you and radiating joy out into the world. And so what they're saying is this book is energy of the mandalas, and that the mandalas are reflections of each other that are radiated, in four directions. And so what this book is doing, it's acting like a focal point. So everybody who gets involved in whatever way, purchasing it, sharing it, looking at it, images, whatever, their energy is brought into the herd.
mm,
They become part of the herd, and then it's radiated out into the world. And so it's like we have this beautiful circle around us. The book is the focal point, and the four reflections, it's
I
being
love it.
reflected. This beautiful energy is being reflected out into the world, and it's a community of people who get involved in whatever way they do. The more joy and the more flavorful it becomes, because we have so many different flavors of everybody becoming part of the herd.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so Erica says, I loved hearing about the process. Excited to order mine today. Yay, so exciting. And Erica
Thank
is
you,
quite creative.
Erica.
She is also quite creative herself and an artist. And so it's always beautiful to have, um, other creatives coming in and sharing about that process, and celebrating that process too. And that was something that was really dropping in for me this morning, that it's important to share about as well. And not only the process of how did we actually create these images, but how did we create this whole book, this whole experience, and really to talk about the timeline out of it. So this is what I would call a labor of love for sure. And it's interesting because I use that term a lot, and I use terms about planting seeds and gestation and these very natural elemental language in the work that I do often. And even when you were talking about the four pieces, it dropped in for me too. Oh, like the four directions. And it's like, you know, the wheel of time, the wheel of the seasons, the wheel of the elements. There's so many different reflections of that, and kind of like it echoes out in so many ways, and it also echoes back in. And you know, as someone who is, I'll say, multi-passionate, highly creative. I have a generator energy. So if you know human design, I'm a generator. I am constantly creating. I have no no lack of creative ideas or creative energy. That is just something that's just like constantly turning in me. And for a lot of people who are creative, that is the case, where there's just this constant kind of like flowing of creativity. Now, it doesn't mean, though, that every single molecule that flows through that stream is a best-selling book, is a masterpiece that someone's going to buy for, you know, millions of dollars. It doesn't mean that, you know, every piece is going to be something that you enjoy or like, or even, you know, want to see again. And it's an important part of the process to realize that it is a process. And I remember a couple of years ago, I went to an online event called the Gathering of the Creatives, and it had some like major people in there. Julia Cameron, who did The Artist's Way, spoke at this Sark. I don't know if you know Sark, but I absolutely freaking love her. She also, oh my gosh, Dawn, you don't know Sark? We're gonna have another conversation after this. You you will love her. She's just totally, oh my gosh, I love her. Like, she wrote a book called How to Eat Mangoes Naked, and also like Bodacious Wild Woman. Oh wait, Wild Succulent Wild Woman. There's a whole bunch of them, like whole series, and they're beautiful. So anyway, um, they were both there. They were both speaking at this conference, and there was a man. I can't remember who he was. He also was a well-known author. I think he wrote a. I should remember who it was, but anyway, I had heard of him, but I wasn't necessarily as familiar with his work. And he spoke, and I went to his, and he's best known for being an author, a well-known author. He's published a bunch of books. And I went to his workshop, and I will tell you, like, I was really annoyed the whole time I was in his workshop. And I was like, oh, why am I so annoyed by this man? Like, there was something that was just like, there was this like grinding in my awareness, this like feeling of grinding. And I was like, oh, what is it? What is it? And as he was speaking, one of the things that he said is, he was like, the creative process is a process, and often creatives forget that it is a process, and not every, you know, what I just said, not everything's going to be a bestseller, not everything's going to come to fruition right away. There is often this part of the process that is dormant, where something, you know, sometimes if you look at the harvest cycle, and this is, you know, something that I talk about a lot, as a metaphor, is you choose the seeds you're going to plant. You plant the seeds. There's this whole like hubbub of activity that's happening as you're like gathering, you're preparing the land, you're planting the seeds, and then you just wait. You water them, you wait. You water them, you have faith. You wait, you wait, you wait, you wait. You hope, you pray, you water, you know, all of those things. And that part of the process for me is like nails on a chalkboard. And what I realized is the reason I was so annoyed by this man's workshop was because he was talking all about that part of the process. And I was resisting it because that is the part that I really don't like. And I think that's the part that, does anyone like that part? I mean, I don't know. Maybe there is somebody who's like all about it, but it's definitely not me. Um, and so this book put us through that process as well. And, you know, I was sharing, I've shared this, you know, different parts of the stage of bringing this book together. And it was a little over a year ago where you and I, Don, we had our manuscript ready. We had it, the cover was designed, all of the images were created. We went in and like pushed publish, and it came back with this like barrage of errors. and no usable information. Like, it was a completely foreign language that I just couldn't understand. Like, what does this mean? What do all these errors mean? Why can't we push it through? And it was exactly that. We were trying to push it through. We wanted to try to get it out before, you know, the holidays. And it was, we were like, oh, we can put it out for Black Friday and we can do, all these things. And it was this very, um, like, it had come together very quickly, and there was a burst of energy. And I remember I created all of the mandalas within, I don't know, what was it, like 3 days maybe. um, and so I had not pushed through to create them in that amount of time because we had set a deadline, because we hadn't even set that deadline yet, but because there was so much vibrant energy for them at that point. So they were just pouring out of me. And then we got to this point where it was time to launch, to actually publish it, and everything came to a screeching halt. And then it just wouldn't move forward. And finally, we had to succumb to surrender to it and say, okay, well, for whatever reason, the timing isn't right and it's not meant to happen right now. And so we tabled it, and we ended up tabling it for almost a year, until a couple weeks ago. I woke up at 4 in the morning one morning with this like very clear message: work on the Star Horses coloring book. I leaped out of bed, full of energy again, that same kind of energy that I had when I first was creating the mandalas, and those were coming in, um, to revamp them and to rework them. And I'd had some experiences over the last 6 months that have given me new information, new skill set, and new resources to fix some of the issues that I didn't even know or understand what they were when we first tried to push it through. So, um, to bring this story around to a close, what happened was that, we got this guidance to kind of kick it into gear again. And I messaged Dawn that day after having, here she comes. There we go. I messaged Dawn that morning saying, I got this guidance. I've been working on it this morning. I think it's time to do this again. And Dawn, do you remember what you said when I contacted you that morning?
Yeah, I said a couple days ago the horses came in, and the energy was, hey, you gonna get that going again? And I just was kind of sitting with it and just, yeah, that would be really nice so we could get that going again. But I didn't say anything.
No.
But I sat
And
on
so,
that for a few days.
yeah. Well, I heard it as well. And it just, like, everything clicked into place. And relatively quickly, we were able to move everything through with, not to say there weren't any bumps in the process, but it was a much smoother ride than it had been. And this time it was really more about refining. Um, and it's interesting because I went back into the images and I needed to kind of retool how they were. They're kind of like layered, and I needed to flatten the images. It's kind of like technical speak, but anyway, that's what needed to happen. And the first one, that really stood out to me, let's see if I can find it quickly. Um, I went in to, the program I was using for this, and I was just kind of going through them, and I was just, going through the motions, but I wasn't paying attention to the messages. And I got through a certain set of them, and they weren't in alphabetical order in the program that I had them in. They were just kind of in a random order. I think how they had to come through when they were channeled. And so the first one that stood out to me: accuracy. And
Mm-hmm.
the message is: pay special attention to the details in your life. It's easy to overlook something important if it's hidden within other information. And that was kind of what the issue was that there were too many layers in the image, because I had started with a hand drawn, like the quarter, the pie piece is actually hand drawn. And then I digitized that and then multiplied it and, made it into the circle and then put the border around it. So it had too many layers. There were too many things kind of hiding behind each other, and it was making it really hard to read. And so I thought that was really interesting that one stood out to me. And it was like, oh, make sure it's like this is what's happening. And so that actually clicked for me some additional information, and I went back and even refined a little bit more, and then things started flowing really easily. And then the next one that stood out to me was simplicity. And so you can see I actually have colored in this one. I tested it out to see, but simplicity. What can you afford to spend less time doing? What will simplify your life if you let it go? And that was when I realized that we were trying to do an ebook version because we wanted to have a printable download, which we're still going to work on and make that happen at some point. But an ebook isn't necessarily the right format for that. And that's when we dropped the ebook version, and that like opened up the floodgates and things just like flowed really easily. So yeah, it was a process. And I think it's important to know that the creative process has ebbs and flows. And it will always
Even
go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to say, even with the we were in an area and now we're in a flow area. We're flowing so darn fast because we moved our launch date up 10 days, or we
Yes.
we moved it, sooner, 10
Yeah.
days. And so it was like a year and it was dragging, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Literally.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That just went with the ebbs and flows. Yeah. And you got to be ready for both.
Exactly. So, okay. Well, I think, we could talk about this all day, and I don't know, that, we'll pop back in. We'll have more videos about it. We'll share more about it as more people are sharing. My phone is like blowing up with messages, which is so beautiful. And it's so great. I just, someone sent a message this morning saying in my email that I sent out to my email list, I said, here are some ways that you can support us today. And I listed 4 ways. You can obviously purchase the book. You can share it with others as a gift. You can share the link with others, just someone that you might think would be interested in it. You can just respond and let us know that you're excited, or celebrate with us, or just send a message of encouragement or love, or other ways that maybe I haven't touched upon, but whatever you're inspired to do. And someone messaged me and she was like, I really want to thank you for putting in there that just sharing encouragement and celebration is welcomed. And yeah, of course we want you to buy the book, but also, no, and also, you know, really just sharing in this energy that, like, go look at it, just look through the pages, like Dawn was saying earlier, the messages from the star horses, that this ripples out, and engaging in it in any way, and engaging with in any way, and sharing that celebration is valuable and so appreciated. So if you're watching this now, you're watching it at some point in the future, if it's not live, it's exactly the right time, space, and place. And we appreciate you being here with us on this journey. Dawn, any final closing words from you?
I was thinking of another way that people can use the coloring book while you were talking about accuracy and simplicity. So,
Yeah.
say you don't have time, to color anything, even if it's a section of it or whatever. In the cards, open the book and see where it lands you for the day, and just keep that in your mind, that message in your mind as you go throughout your day, as a reminder of, is this something that I can pay attention to, or incorporate into my day. You can just use it
Yeah,
like that
absolutely. Yeah,
until the Oracle deck comes out.
exactly. I was going to say, much like an oracle deck. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
so you just open it up and it has a message for you, and that is really what an oracle deck is. So I just opened up the page that I opened it up to is nonverbal communication, and pay close attention to the body language of others. There is much communicated without words, and I would say that that is also not just through body language of others, but body language of yourself. And there's much communicated through your own body. And I call that, part of your soul wisdom language. It's also what channeling is. You receive it in your own body, through your own body, you receive messages and insight in that way. So that feels like a really potent message and accurately aligned message for our talk today.
And the Star Horses want me to say one more thing.
Yeah.
They want to invite anybody and everybody watching or, whatever, but I guess you have to watch this to get the message. They would love to connect. You don't have to be, an animal communicator or a psychic or anything like that. I mean, if you are, that's great. But if you're not, they just invite you to invite them into your dreams at nighttime, or to just when you're sitting quietly in contemplation, meditation, whatever, in your quiet moments, just ask to connect with their energy, and you'll feel it. And they just want so much to connect with us and to play with us.
Yes.
So they really wanted me to just put that invitation out. Yes, please come play.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. That's such a beautiful message to end on as well. So, yeah, the inviting into the dreams and just, like allowing them to share that playful energy with you um, while you're playing, while you're creating. So beautiful. All right, my dears, thank you so much for being here with us. These will be live on our social feeds on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube, both on my page and Dawn's. So we'll have those. Those will be available right away, so you can go back and watch if you have missed the message today. And we're just so excited that you're here with us. Thank you so much, and thank you, Dawn, for being my collaborator in this. Oh, we got another message. Hi, Beth. So good to see you. We're just wrapping up. But yeah, I just wanted to pop your message in and say hello and thank you for being here as well. So have a lovely day and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye, everyone.